Okay, let's unpack this. Today we are taking an intellectually rigorous approach to one of the most foundational concepts in the Quran,
Hmm.
the absolute oneness and uniqueness of Allah, known as Tawhid. And this isn't just a simple statement of singularity. We're really zeroing in on a crucial principle within that framework, the explicit, emphatic, and monumental refutation of the idea of divine progeny.
The idea that God could have a son.
Exactly.
Precisely. And this deep dive, it's really about exploring the philosophical depth and I think the sheer logical architecture behind this concept. We're looking beyond the decree itself to understand why this assertion of uniqueness is so central,
Right.
why it's key to comprehending the divine nature, and maybe more importantly, how it defines our role and our responsibility within the cosmos. It's really an exercise in finding profound clarity.
Well, our sources make it clear that this is not a minor point of doctrine. It's a non-negotiable principle that structures the entire relationship between the creator and creation. So our mission today is clear. We're going to be guided through the cosmic metaphors, the demand for intellectual responsibility, and the logical proofs in the texts themselves.
To begin, we really have to achieve clarity on the core concept. The essence of Tawhid is, well, it's absolute oneness and uniqueness. It's the uncompromising declaration that the divine reality is singular, without peer, without partner, and utterly simple.
Simple meaning without component parts.
Yes, exactly. This isn't monotheism as just not polytheism. It's the assertion of absolute transcendent singularity.
And the most concentrated poetic encapsulation of this truth is in Surah Al-Ikhlas, chapter 112. It's so short, yet incredibly dense. It begins with that fundamental statement. Say, He is Allah, who is one, Allah, the eternal refuge.
Let's pause on that
Okay.
second phrase, the eternal refuge, or as-samad. This word, it means the self-sufficient, the one to whom all creation turns for need, but who has no need of anything.
Or anyone.
Or anyone. It describes a being that is complete in itself, independent, and utterly necessary for everything else to exist. And that concept of absolute independence, it immediately sets the stage for the rest of the refutation.
What's fascinating here is how the chapter then logically expands on that independence by stating, He neither begets nor is born. If he is the eternal refuge, he can't be subject to the created cycle of birth and death.
Exactly. This declaration directly and absolutely refutes any kind of lineage or offspring.
Yeah.
I mean, think of the implications. If the divine were born, it implies a beginning in time, a source, a dependency.
Which negates being the eternal refuge.
It negates it completely.
Yeah.
And if the divine begets, it implies dependency on a partner and participation in the cycle of succession and generation, which is a hallmark of creation, not the creator. By denying both, the text establishes that the divine is transcendent beyond human, physical, or temporal attributes. This is the cornerstone.
So, if that's the blueprint of reality, what happens when humanity tries to violate it? The texts move from this quiet, definitive declaration to really intense, almost violent cosmic imagery.
They do.
It's treated not just as a mistake, but as an act of profound cosmic discord. We find this startling imagery in Surah Maryam.
The verses use hyperbole to shock the listener into understanding the weight of the assertion. They describe that when people say, the most merciful has taken a son, the consequence is that the heavens almost rupture therefrom and the earth splits open and the mountains collapse in devastation.
I find this dynamic shift so powerful. Why the dramatic reaction? We can break down those 3 points of disturbance.
Let's do that. Consider the progression. First, the heavens almost rupture. This isn't just bad weather. This symbolizes the upper spiritual realms reacting violently. It's a disturbance in the very divine architecture of existence itself.
Then, the earth splits open. That's shaking the very foundations of our physical world. The ground beneath our feet is destabilized.
Our entire existence becomes compromised by the magnitude of the falsehood.
And finally, the mountains collapse. Mountains in the Quran, they so often symbolize stability, permanence, anchors for the earth.
And their falling indicates a complete overturning of order. The most stable elements of creation literally cannot bear the weight of such an ontological lie.
This is where that analogy from the sources really clicks for me. Thinking of the universe as a meticulously tuned instrument, harmoniously playing the melody of monotheism, and introducing the idea of Allah having a son is described as a jarring note that disrupts the entire symphony.
That analogy is crucial because it speaks to the intrinsic coherence of reality. The universe functions based on these immutable, perfect laws. Physical, moral, spiritual, and they all point back to one singular source. The claim of progeny fundamentally corrupts that source code. It introduces chaos. symbolized by the cosmos tearing itself apart.
So the human making the claim introduces a discord that the entire creation recoils from.
Yes, exactly.
If the cosmos reacts with such severity, let's shift focus to human responsibility. The Quran doesn't stop at the cosmic reaction. It directly warns against the intellectual foundation, or the lack of one, for such a belief. This is addressed so powerfully in Surah Al-Kahf.
This moves the discussion from cosmology to ethics. And what's the core condemnation here is the sheer baselessness of it. They have no knowledge of it, nor had their fathers. This cuts right to the heart of intellectual accountability.
So the claim isn't founded on revelation or logic or any verifiable knowledge?
None. It stems solely from ignorance and, uncritically inherited tradition.
So this is not a trivial error, it's a grave transgression because it involves making a monumental claim about the divine without any intellectual warrant. The sources really emphasize the danger of uncritically inheriting beliefs. It's a theological demand for critical thinking.
Exactly. The integrity of your faith is tied directly to the integrity of your inquiry. And if we connect this to the broader ethical picture in the Quran, it becomes so clear that there's spiritual accountability for what you believe. Surah Al-Isra issues a warning that resonates so deeply today. And do not pursue that of which you have no knowledge.
It sets the bar incredibly high. If you're going to make an assertion about the fundamental nature of reality about God, you have an ethical duty to ensure that assertion is grounded in truth.
Not just tradition or rumor. The point is that asserting a falsehood about the divine nature is placed alongside major sins. Surah Al-Araf explicitly forbids saying about Allah that which you do not know. So the active engagement of the intellect, it becomes an ethical and spiritual imperative. You're accountable not just for your actions, but for the rigor you apply to your beliefs.
Okay, now that we've established the severe consequences of ignorance, let's move from the ethical necessity of knowledge to the rational proof itself. The sources provide what is described as an irrefutable argument against attributing offspring. This is in Surah Al-An'am.
Right. The verse asks the essential question. Originator of the heavens and the earth, how could he have a son when he does not have a companion and he created all things? This concise verse, it uses two interconnected logical pillars to just dismantle the possibility of progeny.
Let's unpack that logical architecture. The first pillar is the rejection of companion, the sahiba. Procreation, by definition, requires a partner.
And since the divine is defined by Tawhid absolute, unique, transcendent, self-sufficient, he is inherently alone. He has no consort. Therefore, the physical and biological mechanism required for offspring simply cannot exist in the realm of the divine. The very means of generation are incompatible with absolute transcendence.
But someone might ask, couldn't an all-powerful divine entity just will a son into existence without a consort? Doesn't relying on that requirement limit divine power by using human constraints?
That's an important question, but the argument immediately answers it with the second pillar, which focuses on the divine's role as the universal creator. The verse starts with, originator of the heavens and the earth.
Meaning the creator is the source of all laws, including the laws of birth and lineage.
Precisely. The creator stands outside and above the created system. If God had a son, that son would necessarily be either eternal, in which case he'd be a rival God, or created, in which case he'd be subject to the created cycle of dependency and time. The creator cannot be part of the created process that he himself established for his creation.
The existence of a son would instantly introduce dependency and a partnership in sovereignty,
Which violates the very nature of the originator.
So what this two-part logical argument establishes is that the divine is not subject to the laws and process of marriage, birth, and succession that he established for the creation. This underscores Allah's independence and sole sovereignty, which is reaffirmed in Surah Al-Isra. Praise to Allah, who has not taken a son and has had no partner in dominion.
And the ultimate implication of this logical proof is transcendental. It ensures the creator remains utterly distinct and sovereign over the created realm.
Applying this final logic to creation provides a critical lens for viewing other theological claims, especially the unique circumstances around the birth of Jesus or Isa.
The foundational necessity of Tawhid provides the clarity here. The miracle of Jesus' birth being born without a father is acknowledged, of course, but the logical conclusion remains. The divine is exempt from the need for a consort.
Right.
Therefore, Jesus' unique birth is a supreme display of the divine ability to create and command, but he remains fundamentally a creature. Abdullah, the servant of Allah.
So the denial of the Son is absolute, regardless of the miracle involved in the birth of a creature. This ensures the Creator remains perpetually unique, distinct from the created realm.
And that profound intellectual distinction has immediate transformative implications for every single person. The constant rejection of shirk associating partners with the divine and the constant affirmation of Tawhid means we are dealing with a divine entity beyond physical constraints, self-sufficient, without need or dependency.
Which means our relationship with the divine has to be direct. Understanding this uniqueness underscores that individuals connect directly with the Creator, without any need for intermediaries or partners or offspring.
And that directness, in turn, amplifies personal accountability. It emphasizes the responsibility to use one's own agency, one's own intellect, to align with divine guidance, because there is nothing standing between you and the source of reality. The journey towards spiritual authenticity becomes intensely personal and intellectually demanding.
We've completed this intellectual journey. We've seen how the Quran asserts divine uniqueness not just through decree, but through profound cosmic imagery, and finally through rigorous logical arguments that demand intellectual fidelity from the believer.
The underlying theme is clear. The divine essence is unique, absolute, and utterly distinct from creation. This intellectual distinction is really the foundation for spiritual authenticity and clarity in understanding our cosmos. The Creator is not defined by the rules He created.
The sources repeatedly highlight that beliefs based on no knowledge are dangerous and an ethical failing. This raises an important question for you to consider today. If holding unverified beliefs about the divine is an ethical failing, a betrayal of intellectual duty, what are the modern implications for critical thinking and spiritual responsibility when we are constantly encountering vast amounts of conflicting information? How does the pursuit of verifiable, grounded knowledge itself become an act of profound faith?